Mortgage is on the rise, interest rates is on the rise, everything is on the rise. Is the government going to be able to provide us some assistance? This is one of the reasons why we make sure that our veterans are with the right people. When you're talking about agents, what are they trying to do?
Don't come with questions, come with solutions, right?
You don't know how to reach a settlement statement? How are you going to make the best decision?
Finding a way, right? For home ownership, right? You just have to.
Here on the Prepare to Compete podcast today, we're going to be talking about veterans housing affordability. Is it possible? Is it not possible? Are we going to receive some help soon or aid? I want to make sure that we talk about these things and find out how can we afford property. Okay, we deserve it. We have served our country. We need to use the VA home loan benefit, but how can we be able to utilize the VA home loan benefit if we can't afford our monthly payments? Mortgage is on the rise, interest rates is on the rise, HOAs are on the rise, taxes on the rise, everything is on the rise. Is the government going to be able to provide us some assistance? You'll find out here now on the Prepare to Compete podcast. The financial industry. So when we're talking about the financial industry, you guys, though transparency should always be key, though it is key, you can be as transparent as you want, but you don't know what you're looking at. If you don't know how to read your actual settlement statement, right? You don't know how to read your settlement statement. How are you going to make the best decision? Mm-hmm. Who are going over with you? Who's going over your actual loan estimate with you? Because again, receiving that letter that you're pre-approved for $550,000, you're excited. Absolutely. You're ecstatic. The financial industry told you can afford a $500,000 home, and you can purchase a $500,000 home. Well, what they don't tell you is that these things could also have a ratio, right? They understand the amount of people who are going to continue, who's going to continue to pay and who are not going to continue to pay, okay? So understanding these percentages and values of people who are going to take the chances to be able to make money at the certain percentage on the lower end of, well, we have 30% of people who received a $500,000 pre-approval. So we understand with that 30% of people, we have another 70% of people that are going to make their payments on time, but the 30% of people who aren't will take those chances and reevaluate after 3 years. So if I'm running the numbers and understand as a financial lender, if I am having again, we said 30%, let's say 15 of those continue their monthly payments on a continuous basis, right? With those continuous payments, at that point, 85% of people of your loans are being covered every single month in the interest rate. But now you have to also understand that they are reselling these loans, okay? So when they're reselling the loans, it puts you particularly are protected and stay and remain the same, but the lender themselves have repurposed and resold your loan back to the government. Mm-hmm. Because again, first-time home buyers, as a first-time home buyer, majority of people are going into just a few different loan products. It's only a few. It's not too many. Most people aren't, again, you have to be a veteran to be a VA loan product.
Right, yeah, and then even just beyond the typical product, right, they're all going into pretty much conforming loans, right, which can be sold back to the government. And that's the ideal kind of gold standard of what they want to get homeowners into so that they can ultimately sell.
So 9 times out of 10, that young lady was under a FHA loan, right? With the FHA loan at that point, it could be repurposed. So now the lender, if at any point in time that you're going to foreclose or what have you, at that point, the lender is covered, So I say all that to say, just in regards to this video, to be educated on what you're receiving from a financial lender. Okay, don't be too excited and looking at the money that you're going to receive, or again, it's not money. It's a piece of paper that's saying that you can approve to say you can or you cannot afford. You know what you can afford.
Absolutely. So now let me ask you something based on that, right? So, of course, with the VA loan, there's no down payment requirement, right? FHA loan, 3.5%. And oftentimes there's programs for both VA borrowers and also FHA borrowers for down payment assistance programs, right? That you can utilize for either down payment or closing costs. So now in doing that, a lot of times people don't have those reserves, right? Because those government programs don't necessarily require it. And they're so encouraged to purchase a home that they may not necessarily be in a strong financial position just based off the fact that they don't have any reserve funds, in case something happens or in case their payment goes up and they're buying at the top of their budget. So, what are some things that they should sort of, I guess, look at? We're talking about ratios and different things as far as that purchase box, right? So if you're approved for 500,000, do you have a certain rule of saying, hey, should you be looking at homes maybe at 400 or 450? Like, how should our veterans out there really kind of position themselves when they're looking at housing and trying to see what's actually going to be manageable for them?
Yeah, great question. So when we're talking about that, what a personal, sentiment would be is it depends, right? Because every household is different, every financial obligations are different. However, I will say and I will urge, if at any point in time, it varies also amongst markets, right? But identifiably, when we're talking about you're spending, if you're spending 60% of your actual monthly take home for that property, you better want to have that property forever. Because when we're talking about 60% of your monthly income, which again, you have states like, markets, I'm not going to say states, because again, you have like the San Diego market. The San Diego market is the influx on a year-over-year basis for, again, affordability and housing has gotten almost unattainable for the average active duty veteran that lives there. For the average, again, we understand most veterans aren't average and most active duty members aren't average, so you always make a way. However, it's unattainable, even with basic allowance for housing. It's very hard. So the rule of thumb, I would say, again, at any point in time, if you're over your budget of 60%, you really need to reconsider and really come up with a plan of action on how you're going to be able to pay for that property. Because at that point, if you don't have any additional income that's going to be coming in over the period of time, it's going to 9 times out of 10, it's going to be unaffordable for you, and you're going to wind up either selling that property or losing that property.
Got it. So now, when you say 60%, you're saying a 60% total debt to income?
60% debt to income for their personal finances.
Okay.
So if you're utilizing 60% of your take-home money to pay your actual mortgage, that it becomes a problem. But most people are.
Most people are.
Most people are.
Yeah. But I mean, again, like you just kind of talked about the resiliency of veterans and active duty members kind of finding a way, right? Always finding a way. And there's a way to find a way for home ownership, right? You just have to get really creative and start to kind of reconsider the idea of the nuclear family, right? Really reconsider what that family structure is going to look like. So, maybe it's just you, your wife, and your children that wanted to purchase a house, but maybe it's not going to make sense to do it that way, right? Maybe you may want to move in a grandparent, right? Not only to get their additional, income or retirement or to help support, and it can actually help support both parties, right? Because now they are not just supported in a financial way, but also just in a caring way, being around their grandchildren. You know, I actually was looking at something, they were talking about a study of individuals, grandparents that actually around their grandchildren more often actually live longer, right? They have more to live for and different things like that, which is, you know, a very interesting concept, right? So why not look at like, okay, well, how can I make this more affordable? Now, because when we think about in the 1950s and 60s, and we watch a lot of these, you know, kind of older movies, you'll see the grandparents living in the home, right? You'll see that, and it was for more reasons than one, right? That probably happened, and maybe we have to start getting into that a little bit more. You know, maybe the children, when they turn 18, instead of saying, hey, you know, you have to leave, they could stay in the home a little bit longer. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be working and contributing income to the property, different things of that nature. It's like you have a lot of different ways to get affordability in your housing situation. So we have to start looking at outside of the box ideas.
So let's take a few steps back to understand. A lot of times, most people that is, again, this young lady's age or in the working age group, right? And when we're talking about the professional age group, which is going to typically range about from the 25 to 27, it's getting a little younger now because of the access to employment, all to upwards of, let's say, 65, because most people are working to retirement or beyond retirement now because of the unaffordability of homes and other household items. So if you would want an aspect of the grandparent around for children, if you do have children, right? Also, and also the parents, right? Because we're working on a regular basis. And also, with that said as well, we also want the other family members around. When we're talking about family members, we're talking about uncles, aunts, and so on. Someone that is going to be attributable to your children's or household well-being, right? Because 9 times out of 10, those breadwinners who are paying those mortgages, they don't have the opportunity to spend the time that they would love with their children. It's Men's Mental Health Month this month, and I will tell you right now, as a man, it can become daunting. And as just that young lady has positioned herself to be in a breadwinner's position, she has gotten to the point of depression, as she mentioned. Which again, we're going to reach out to her to make sure that she can seek some help that she needs. But when we're talking about that, you have the wisdom in the house. You have the fun in the house. You have also the understanding of the work threshold in the house. So there's things that you can't teach your children or establish in your household because, one, you're probably too busy. You can't provide the extra nurturing. You can't provide the extra wisdom. There's something that your parents has probably taught you and instilled in you that it is repetitively instilled, okay? It is instilled in you. But to verbally, to try to regurgitate it and verbalize that and put it in your children, there's more things that you have forgotten, okay, to be able to instill into your children or your household that your parents have. Because we're coming in a state of baby boomers they're getting older and they're going to need to be placed. So it's going to overall assist your overall home and also your overall finances.
Right, yeah, especially finances. We're talking about the veteran community, right, and being service connected and how that actually impacts your monthly award, right? You know, having additional dependents and dependent parents and different things of that nature.
Understandably, again, when we're talking about that, you're able to go ahead and receive additional income by how, again, as a parent can be a dependent. And when you have dependent parents, they're able to receive such things as, again, aid and attendance, different things of that nature. So now the burden of housing an elder, right, And I say burden cautiously because it's not a burden. It's a pleasure and it's a gift. But most would consider it as a burden. But there are cultures out here that treasure our elders and ancestors, and we should start as well. But again, it's gonna overall uplift the home for my purposes. Obviously, everyone has their own background and differences, and again, for the parents and not parents living, and trust me, we can go into that, but that's not the purpose of it. But what I will say is just make it a consideration, right? Because again, if you are in a position where unaffordability, just to your day-to-day job and not to be able to afford your home or your daily living needs, this could be a way to be able to be supported as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, how you say it is great, right? Because you bring up aunts, uncles, cousins, different people, and even, close friends and different things of that nature. Like whatever you need to do to keep your family household and create a structure that works for you, do that. Don't think, oh, I'm too old to have roommates, or I'm too old to do this, or I'm too old to do this. It's like they're making homes now with in-law suites, and they're making 3-story homes where you can literally divide it up into almost like 2 separate families and different things of that nature. They're doing these things because they're kind of understanding the structure. And, in a lot of places, even California, for example, they just changed the legislation for converting your garage to a additional unit, as far as different policies on ADUs and different things like that. Actually building units in the backyard, or people are going to the Home Depot in those sheds and making those into homes, right? Or even for some people, at least just making it into like an extra room for an office and different things like that. There's so many creative things that people are doing to really add all the elements that they need into the home. So it's not that we're not capable of affording a home. We just have to really think and look at our unique situation and what's going to work for us, and really outline that and set that as an achievable goal there.
No, 100%. And a lot of times I think we are not thinking outside the box, right? Everyone has a traditional home buying mindset, unless obviously investors and people in the industry are a little bit more creative with those things. But the average home buyer just thinks of it in a traditional sense. Oh, I go to work, go home, pay my mortgage, and I buying a single family home, and that's it. And I paid my mortgage a month. Well, we have to get creative here, you guys, right? We got to get creative here, because unaffordability is here, okay? It's getting to the point where something has to happen, right? As we continue to go over the years, home ownership and home purchases are dropping, right? So if interest rates are going up, home sales are just going down, what are we going to do? Because now renting is just as expensive as buying.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we have to be a little bit more creative in things, and we have strategies that are out there. There's, again, for veterans, there's so many different strategies to take in consideration. VA assumable loans,
absolutely,
assumables. That is a huge opportunity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We have a whole video about that, so I won't go too much into it. But with that assumable loan, what you're able to actually do is to take advantage of somebody that purchased a home with a lower interest rate. So like even thinking about her exact situation, right? Like let's say that she was a veteran and she purchased her home 3 years ago, right? So 3 years ago, it had a lower interest rate. She might be looking to get out of her property right now based on her situation. Maybe she wants to move to a different area, or maybe just based on the unaffordability she's experiencing. She would have a very difficult time selling that home because the equity in that home, she doesn't have a lot of it, right? Because the prices of 3 years ago and today, and when you incorporate closing costs, isn't that much of a difference, right? Let's say her home was, she bought it for $300, it might be worth $340 now, right? But when you look at closing costs and things, she might end up being underwater. So now if she could actually do a loan assumption to another veteran, for example, they can go and buy that home from her, assume that $300,000 mortgage at her 2.5% interest rate, and then give her the $40,000 cash, the difference of the purchase price and the loan value, and she walks away with $40,000, and they walk away with the 2.5% interest rate. Both parties end up very, very happy in that situation.
That is just a small hack. There's so many different ways to obtain that asset. Getting into home ownership, we should all know the home is a bank product. Okay, it's a bank product, but it's the cornerstone of wealth. Let's never forget that. Though it is a bank product, home ownership is the cornerstone of wealth. There's not been more millionaires produced outside of real estate than anywhere else. Real estate has, rapidly has garnered the lower class, middle class very quickly through home ownership. And the government knows that. That's why these government programs are enacted. But what I will say is this, is that there are multiple different ways to be able to obtain, but you have to be flexible. Most people go into their homes with these vision of you want the perfect home. I seen a quote. It says, "Don't let your pre-approval buy your last home in regards to it being your first home." I said, "Whoa, wow!" No, I thought that was incredible, because your pre-approval amount will have you thinking, I need to buy $1 million home. I need to buy $500,000. I need to buy a home, a $300,000, whatever it is, an unaffordable home.
You want to buy at the max of your budget, right?
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're looking at the pre-approval instead of looking at what your needs are. It's like, hey, where am I looking to live around the city? How many bedrooms I need, how much square footage, do I need a yard, garage, different things like that. You're not even thinking in terms of that anymore. You're just thinking in terms of, okay, what can I get for $500,000? Because that's what the pre-approval said.
Please put yourself put yourself in a position of power. And what I mean by that is that being scarce or having to be desperate in a place to live is no time to buy. Do not buy out of desperation. Buy out of need, and also buy out of quality of life for your life, personally. What are the functional things that I need? Most people, they go in, they walk into a home. Well, I want those. I want that a drop light. I want that $5,000 chandelier that's gonna walk in when I come in. Listen, this is not your last home, okay? Let's try to purchase a starter home to get you in a position to build your wealth if you're not in that position, if you're not already in that position. And then let's start again adding on as we continue.
Absolutely. So now really kind of break down what you mean with that, because a lot of times you go in as a first-time home buyer, you could be 25 years old, you could be 45 years old, right? But it's very good to understand what you're saying here, right? It most likely not going to be your forever home, because again, your needs are going to constantly change, but also your desires are going to change as well. When you purchase that first initial property, you didn't know as much about what type of floor plan you preferred as much, or you may wanted a kitchen with an island, and now you realize that this one doesn't have a big enough pantry or closet, or so many different things that you'll consider. Or you may want a pool later, and all these sorts of things, right? So you will upgrade, no matter how much you think that house is just, this is the creme de la creme, right? This is it. But if you're not at the maximum of your earning potential, and that is not at the height of your career, saying, hey, this is as much money am I ever going to earn, chances are you're going to end up upgrading that home.
So when we're talking about average earning potential, but also typically when you are not at the maximum of your earning potential, right? You are if you're at the lower end of your earning potential, most people are making their maximum earning potential until they're in their 50s, okay? Until they're in their 50s. That's when you have garnered enough knowledge and wisdom to provide a company, if you're working for somebody, or your own establishment, to a height of real work skills to make that type of income. So typically when you're buying your first home, you're pretty much either at your mid, potential of earning potential, or you're at the beginning stages, right? And so there will be kind of quadrants of your earning potential, and you are typically in the first quadrant, okay? So with that being said, as Mr. Jones mentioned, your desires are going to change. We are not in a traditional market that we're going to purchase a home and stay in the home for 30 years to pay off that home. That isn't even that's not the strategy that is in place for financial gain at this moment. So if you're not in a position of putting yourself in the financial gain, why would you potentially put yourself in the debted mindset of coming in to try to purchase at the maximum pre-approval? Just take a second and make sure that you're making the right purchase, but also have the right understanding and education.
I believe as a first-time home buyer, you should come in with an investor mindset, right? And really look at that property as a stepping stone. And this is going to be the first piece of property in your investment portfolio. So instead of worrying about whether you like the kitchen and a master bathroom, look at, okay, well, what's the future value of this area? What's the future rental value of this property? Am I going to be able to rent this property out at some point? Because with the interest rates being higher right now, it may not be when you initially purchase that property. So I just want to let you know, you may be upside down on your mortgage for, the first 1, 2, 3 years right now because of the interest rates. But will I be able to eventually rent this property out for more than the cost of my mortgage? That should be something that you're always kind of concerned about. And again, try not to get too far above that. Don't get a house with a $3,500 mortgage and the rental value of that property is only $2,000, right? That may not be the best thing for you from a long-term standpoint. And, some people may like, oh, that won't happen. No, I'm seeing that a lot in today's market where that's going on because they see the house is new and shiny, but you look at over there, you run the comps on the rentals, and it's written out for $2,000. So I'm not saying not to buy that home because sometimes it could be in an area where it's going to have a lot of equity appreciation. But if you do enter yourself into that, you need to make yourself aware and you need to be strategic about it and understand like, hey, if I get in the jam here in the next year or two, I'm upside down on this house as far as renting it out. So I'll be forced to sell it to be able to break even, right? So you need, again, when Kenneth's talking about that education, you need to educate yourself so that you understand these aspects.
And just going kind of circling back to the video, right? I thought it was a real huge component when she mentioned that she utilized $30,000 to get in that property. First off, kudos to you for being able to save an amount of $30,000. Because again, when we're talking about statistically, most people don't have $1,000 to their name, right? So that's number one. Number two, I would be remiss not to discuss the workforce stability, right? Workforce stability. So when we're talking about the workforce, please do not purchase with all intention that you being at that job for the rest of your life. And also all intention of you getting that promotion next year. Because things change, people change, and also the economy changes. As you can see, currently in the last 10 years, we have grown as a human society faster than any period in our existence, right? So we don't know what's to come. So make sure that you're putting yourself in position when you're purchasing to afford your home comfortably, right? So it is just because I see it all the time, right? When we're talking about affordability, 1 minute you're working, next minute you're laid off, right? Typically, when we're talking about a 2-year time, to be approved for a property, you would need 2 years of specifically 2 years of work history. That's what they would look at. I'm not comfortable with 2 years of consistent paychecks. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not gonna say wait 10 years. What I will say is make sure you have a contingency plan if something comes in place. So when the young lady mentioned the saving that $30,000, that could have been potentially her savings, and that's why she's having such a rough moment, because she did not get educated in the full aspects of things, but also she depleted her contingency plans, right? So with that being said, make sure that we have some type of contingency to be able to get out of this jam. I mean, at the end of the day, she always can sell. Right. We always can sell.
Yeah, she can always sell. So then, kind of to sum it up, and, she posed this question, and, if you were in front of her, or if a veteran came to you and said this, I want to know how you would actually reply to the comment of buying my home was my biggest mistake. If someone said that to you, what would be your reaction to that?
Well, let's figure out how to make it your biggest success. So let's sit down, let's figure out how we can make different opportunities for you, because there's always opportunity when you own an asset. It is just having the openness as a human to be able to want to pivot in your decision. It is not a failure because of pivoting. It's a failure not to pivot and put yourself through that mental anguish. So let's figure out how we can make it an opportunity rather than a failure.
Absolutely, Kenneth. I love it. Thanks for giving all the people the guidance today. Prepare to compete. We appreciate you guys. We out. Peace.